There's a cabin deep in the mountains where writers go to finish their masterpieces. They check in, but they don't always check out. The locals won't speak of it. The Forest Service denies its existence. But if you're desperate enough, if your career hangs by a thread, you might receive an email with coordinates and a simple promise. Find your voice in the silence. What they don't tell you is that something else is listening, something ancient that feeds on creativity, on stories, on souls, something that's been hungry for a very long time. Emma's car sped through dense fog, the headlights barely penetrating the wall of gray. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as the radio cut to static, then silence. She jabbed at the buttons, but nothing happened. The sudden quiet felt oppressive, as if the world outside had ceased to exist. "Just nerves," she muttered, checking her GPS. The signal flickered, then disappeared. Perfect. She'd have to rely on the written directions her editor had emailed. This retreat was Diane's idea, a last-ditch effort to salvage Emma's stalled career. Her debut novel had shown promise, but that was 3 years ago. Now, with her deadline extended twice already, the publisher's patience was wearing thin. 2 weeks to finish, Diane had warned, or we pull the contract. Emma swerved to avoid something on the road, a deer, maybe, or a fallen branch. Whatever it was vanished into the fog. For a split second, she could have sworn it looked like a human figure, impossibly tall and thin. She blinked hard. Sleep deprivation was making her see things. The narrow road wound deeper into the forest. Old-growth pines towered on either side, their branches forming a canopy that blocked what little daylight remained. Emma checked her watch, 4:38 p.m. Sunset would come early in these mountains. The cabin appeared suddenly, as if materializing from the mist. It was larger than the photos had suggested, 2 stories of dark wood and stone, with a wraparound porch and large windows that reflected the gray sky like blind eyes. Emma killed the engine and sat for a moment, listening to the tick of the cooling metal. Something about the place felt wrong, the unnatural silence, the way the surrounding pines seemed to lean inward, as if examining her arrival. A sharp rap on her window made her scream. Emma whipped around to see. Nothing. The forest was still, not even a breeze disturbing the branches. Her heart hammered as she grabbed her suitcase and laptop bag from the passenger seat, fumbling with keys that suddenly seemed foreign in her trembling hands. The cabin door swung open before she reached it. Just the wind, Emma told herself, though the air remained perfectly still. Inside, the space was tastefully furnished, rustic but comfortable, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall and a writing desk positioned before a large window overlooking the woods, perfect for inspiration. Or surveillance. That first night, Emma wrote frantically, desperate to meet her deadline. The words flowed easier here, pouring out in a torrent she hadn't experienced since her first novel. But reading back what she'd written, Emma frowned. The prose didn't sound like her, darker, more visceral, with descriptions that bordered on disturbing. Still, it was good. Better than anything she'd written in months. At midnight exactly, the laptop screen flickered. Emma blinked, thinking her eyes were tired, but then it happened again. The words on the page began to move, rearranging themselves of their own accord. She watched, paralyzed, as they formed a new message. "I see you when you sleep." Emma slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. A branch scratched against her window, or were those fingers? Long, skeletal fingers, tracing patterns on the glass. She approached cautiously, but saw only darkness and her own reflection, pale and wide-eyed. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by sounds she couldn't identify, whispers just beyond comprehension, footsteps that stopped outside her bedroom door, and once, the distinct sensation of cold breath on her face that jolted her awake to find nothing there. Morning brought no relief. The fog remained, transforming the forest into a realm of shadows and half-seen movements. Emma made strong coffee and tried her phone. No signal. The landline was dead too, the dial tone replaced by a strange, rhythmic clicking that sounded almost like speech. Outside, Emma discovered bizarre symbols carved into the trees surrounding the cabin. They formed a perfect circle, as if marking a boundary. The markings resembled no alphabet. She recognized jagged lines and spirals that hurt her eyes to look at directly. Fresh sap oozed from the cuts like blood from wounds. When she touched one, the sap burned her skin, leaving a similar symbol on her finger that wouldn't wash off no matter how hard she scrubbed. Back inside, Emma tried to research the symbols online, but the internet connection had failed. Her laptop worked, though, and she opened her manuscript, determined to continue despite the strange occurrences. The document had changed overnight. Between her own paragraphs were new passages. She didn't remember writing descriptions of something ancient that lived in the spaces between trees, watching, waiting, hungry for stories and the people who told them. The shower brought no comfort. The water ran ice cold, then scalding hot without warning. Emma could have sworn she heard laughter beneath the spray, a child's laughter, cutting off abruptly. When she stepped out, the mirror was fogged completely, except for a handprint too large to be human, with elongated fingers that nearly spanned the glass. Her phone chimed suddenly impossible with no signal. The screen showed dozens of new photos in her gallery, photos she never took. All were of her sleeping, from angles impossible for anyone outside to capture. Some from directly above her bed, others from corners of the room where no one could stand. The final image made her drop the phone with a clatter, a tall, emaciated figure standing over her bed, its elongated fingers reaching for her face, its features obscured except for reflective, animal-like eyes. The power went out that evening as darkness fell. Emma packed frantically, throwing clothes into her suitcase by the beam of her flashlight. The batteries drained within minutes, leaving her in total darkness. She felt her way to the front door, desperate to leave, to escape to her car and never look back. Something circled the cabin, its movements deliberate. She could hear it scraping at each window in turn, testing, searching. When Emma tried the door, it wouldn't budge. The knob turned, the latch lifted, but the door remained firmly shut, as if sealed by some invisible force. She was trapped. "What do you want?" she screamed into the darkness, her voice breaking. "Your voice," came the whisper from everywhere at once. "Your stories, they sustain me." Emma ran to the kitchen, searching for another exit. The back door was gone. Where it had been was now a solid wall, as if no door had ever existed. The windows wouldn't break, no matter how hard she struck them with a chair. It was as if the entire cabin had transformed into a seamless cell. She barricaded herself in the bedroom, pushing a heavy dresser against the door. It didn't help. The symbols she'd seen on the trees began to appear on the walls, carved by invisible hands. The scratching sounds came from inside now, from within the very wood of the cabin itself. Her skin burned as matching marks spread across her body, appearing like tattoos rising from beneath her flesh. The laptop screen glowed in the darkness, displaying a single message. "Your story ends here. Mine continues." By dawn, Emma's resistance had crumbled. The bedroom door swung open on its own, despite the dresser still pressed against it. Beyond, she could see the cabin's front door was also open, revealing the forest outside. The fog had cleared, but the world beyond looked wrong somehow, the colors too vivid, the shapes of the trees slightly distorted, as if viewed through warped glass. The forest had changed overnight. The trees now stood closer to the cabin, arranged in an unnatural pattern. They formed a corridor leading into darkness, a path that hadn't existed the day before. Among the trees stood shadowy figures with gleaming eyes, dozens of them, motionless, watching. Emma recognized something in their postures, their outlines, other riders, perhaps. Previous tenants who had come seeking isolation and inspiration. "Join us," the voices whispered in unison. Your words will live forever here." As if possessed, Emma walked toward them, her manuscript pages scattered behind her from her open laptop bag, dancing in a wind that affected nothing else. The final page that settled on the cabin threshold read only, "The Watcher needs a new voice." She stepped into the trees and vanished, swallowed by shadows that moved with purpose. The forest closed behind her like a mouth. 3 days later, Diane called the local sheriff, concerned about her missing author. She was supposed to check in daily. She explained, "It's not like Emma to go silent, especially with her deadline so close." The search party found Emma's car parked outside the cabin, key still in the ignition. Her clothes were neatly hung in the closet, her laptop open on the desk. The screen showed only a blank document titled "Final Draft." No other trace of her manuscript remained, not in the computer's memory, not in the cloud backups, not in the emails she'd sent to her editor. Dogs tracked her scent to the edge of the woods behind the cabin, then stopped, whining and refusing to go further. The most experienced handler had never seen anything like it. "It's like she just disappeared right here," he said, marking the spot where the strange symbols were carved into the surrounding trees. The investigation went cold. No body was ever found. No trace of Emma remained in the literary world. Her first novel went out of print within months. Her social media accounts were deleted. Her author website disappeared. Even her friends spoke of her less and less, as if memories of Emma were fading like old photographs. Within a year, her name had been forgotten by all but a few. It was as if she'd never existed. The cabin was rented again 6 months later. The listing made no mention of the disappearance. The new tenant, another struggling writer seeking isolation and inspiration, reported hearing whispers in the walls at night. His work took a dark turn, filling with descriptions of ancient, hungry things that lived in the spaces between trees. Sometimes, on foggy nights, locals claimed to see a thin female figure among the pines near the cabin, watching with hungry, gleaming eyes. But nobody who ventures into those woods after dark ever returns to confirm the story. The manuscript pages that scattered on the cabin floor were collected as evidence, then lost in transit to the police station. Only one page was filed, the last thing Emma ever wrote. "I see now what lives in the woods. It's beautiful and terrible. It consumes. It transforms. It watches. And soon, I will watch with it."